A single father's quiet life is shattered when his estranged billionaire ex-wife calls at 2 a.m., not about their teenage daughter's flat tire, but about a secret that will force him to choose between the simple life he's built and the family he never stopped loving. Some roads lead back home, others lead to places you never imagined you'd have the courage to go. Before we dive in, make sure to hit the subscribe button and leave a comment. Where in the world are you watching from? The call came at 2:17 a.m. Danny's phone buzzed against the nightstand, pulling him from the thin sleep that had become his companion these past 3 years. The screen's harsh light cut through the darkness of his studio apartment, and for a split second, he thought it might be work, another overnight emergency at the auto shop. Then, he saw the name, Mia. His thumb hovered over the decline button. 3 years. 3 years since she'd called him directly, since she'd needed anything from him that couldn't be handled through lawyers or their daughter's careful, diplomatic text messages. But at 2:17 a.m., people only called for 2 reasons: emergencies or desperation. He swiped to answer. Hello? Danny. Her voice was smaller than he remembered, stripped of the boardroom confidence that had carried her through their divorce proceedings. I'm sorry to call so late. It's about Emma. His body was already moving, feet hitting the cold hardwood, reaching for yesterday's jeans draped over the chair. What happened? Is she hurt? No, she's fine. Physically, she got a flat tire coming back from Sarah's house. She's stuck on Route 9, by the old Sinclair station. Danny paused, one leg halfway into his jeans. She called you? The silence stretched long enough that he could hear his own heartbeat. She tried calling you first, Mia said finally. Your phone went to voicemail. Danny grabbed his phone, checking the missed calls. Nothing. Then he remembered he'd put it on Do Not Disturb after 9. Same as always. The shop's emergency line would still come through, but everything else got filtered until morning. Everything else, including their 17-year-old daughter, stranded on a dark highway at 2 in the morning. Shit. He finished pulling on his jeans, grabbed his keys from the bowl by the door. I'm heading out now. Did she call AAA? I don't think she knows how. Another pause. Danny, there's something else. He stopped, keys halfway to the lock. In all their years together, through the good times and the bitter end, Mia had never been one to hesitate. She moved through the world with the kind of certainty that came from having more money than most small countries. When she hesitated, it meant the ground was shifting. What is it? Can you get Emma first? Then we'll talk. Mia, please. Just get our daughter. The line went dead. Danny stared at his phone for 5 seconds, then pocketed it and headed for the door. Whatever game Mia was playing, whatever crisis had driven her to call him directly for the first time in 3 years, it could wait. Emma came first. Emma always came first. His truck started on the second try, the engine turning over with the reluctant growl of a machine that had seen better decades. The streets were empty at this hour, nothing but the occasional delivery truck and the perpetual glow of 24-hour gas stations, painting everything in harsh fluorescent yellows. Route 9 stretched out like a dark ribbon, the old highway that connected their small town to the rest of the world. Danny had driven this road countless times to work, to the grocery store, to drop Emma off at Mia's house, back when they still did exchanges in person, before the lawyers decided it was better to coordinate through third parties. He spotted her car before he saw her. The little Honda Civic, 3 years old, reliable, not flashy, sat tilted on the shoulder with its hazard lights, painting the asphalt in rhythmic red pulses. Emma stood beside it, arms wrapped around herself, looking smaller than her 5'7" frame in the darkness. Danny pulled over, his headlights sweeping across her, as he positioned the truck. She turned toward the light, and even at this distance, he could see the relief wash over her face. Dad! He climbed out of the truck, and she was running toward him, all pretense of 17-year-old independence evaporating in the space between heartbeats. He caught her in a hug that lifted her off the ground, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo and the faint smell of Sarah's house, wood smoke, and vanilla candles. "I'm sorry," she said into his shoulder. "I tried to call you, but it went straight to voicemail and I didn't know what to do. And Mom was the only other person I could think of and—" "Hey." He set her down, hands on her shoulders, meeting her eyes. "You did exactly right. Are you okay?" She nodded, but he could see the shaky aftermath of adrenaline in the way her hands trembled. "I was driving home and there was this pop, and suddenly the steering went all weird. I managed to get over here, but—" She gestured helplessly at the car. Danny walked over to examine the damage. The front right tire was completely flat, the rubber probably shredded from driving on it. But the wheel looked intact, and from what he could see in the dark, it was just bad luck. A nail, or a piece of road debris, nothing more serious. "It's just a flat," he said, opening his truck's toolbox. 20 minutes, and you'll be good as new." Emma leaned against his truck while he worked, the jack lifting her car with mechanical precision. The spare tire was in good condition. He'd checked it himself 6 months ago during her last oil change, back when she'd still let him maintain her car without it becoming a whole thing about independence and growing up. "Dad? Yeah? Why do you think Mom called you instead of just sending AAA?" Danny paused in the middle of loosening a lug nut. It was a good question, one he'd been trying not to think about since Mia's call. AAA would have been faster, more efficient. Emma had the coverage, he'd made sure of that when she first started driving. "I don't know, Em." She sounded weird on the phone. Like, scared weird. Danny looked up at his daughter, noting the worry lines around her eyes that made her look older than 17. Emma had always been perceptive, even as a little kid. She'd been the one to figure out her parents were getting divorced before they'd worked up the courage to tell her. "Scared how?" Emma shrugged, but her expression remained troubled. "Just not like Mom. You know how she gets when she's in business mode, all controlled and efficient? This wasn't that. This was like—" She paused, searching for the words. "Like when I was little and I'd have nightmares, and she'd sit with me until I fell back asleep." That voice. The vulnerable voice. The voice Mia used when the walls came down and she let people see the person beneath the empire she'd built. Danny hadn't heard that voice in years. He finished changing the tire in silence, his hands moving through the familiar motions while his mind raced. When he was done, he loaded the flat tire into his truck bed and walked back to where Emma stood. "Your car's ready," he said. "Follow me home?" Emma nodded, then stopped. "Actually, Dad, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you ever miss it? Being married to Mom?" The question hit him like a physical blow, unexpected and precise. Danny looked at his daughter, really looked at her, and saw Mia's eyes staring back at him, the same dark brown that had first captivated him 18 years ago. "That's complicated." That's not an answer." "No," he said quietly. "It's not." Emma studied his face in the red glow of her hazard lights. "She misses it," she said finally. "She doesn't say so, but I can tell. She gets this look sometimes, when she thinks I'm not watching. Like she's remembering something that hurt." Danny's throat tightened. I know you guys had your reasons for getting divorced. I was 14, not 4. I saw how you barely talked to each other those last few months. But I also remember how you used to dance in the kitchen when you thought I was asleep. And how Mom would laugh, really laugh at your stupid jokes." She was crying now, tears reflecting the hazard lights like tiny red stars. "I just want you to know that if there was ever a chance, if you two could figure it out, I wouldn't be mad. I wouldn't feel like I had to choose sides or anything. I just want my family back." Danny pulled her into another hug, this one longer and tighter than the first. Over her shoulder, he stared into the darkness of Route 9, thinking about dancing in kitchens, and shared laughter, and the way Mia's hand used to find his in movie theaters. Thinking about the fear in her voice when she'd called. Thinking about secrets and second chances and the dangerous hope building in his chest. "Come on," he said, releasing Emma and stepping back. "Let's get you home. It's a school night." Emma wiped her eyes and managed a smile. Such a dad thing to say. "I am a dad. The best one I know." She climbed into her car and started the engine. Danny watched her pull onto the road, then followed, his truck's headlights illuminating the path home. His phone buzzed with a text message. At the next red light, he checked it. "Thank you for getting Emma. We need to talk. Are you free tomorrow evening?" Danny stared at the message until the light turned green and the car behind him honked. He drove the rest of the way home in silence, questions multiplying in his mind like fractals. By the time he pulled into his driveway, one thing had crystallized with perfect clarity. Whatever Mia wanted to talk about, whatever had put that fear in her voice, it was going to change everything. He just didn't know if that change would break his heart all over again, or if it might against all odds and reason put it back together. The clock on his truck's dashboard read 3:23 a.m. In 6 hours, he'd open the auto shop, spend his day elbow-deep in engines and brake pads, pretending this night had never happened. But first, he had to figure out what to say to the woman who had once been his entire world, and who might, if Emma was right, still be carrying pieces of his heart in hers. Danny spent the next day, moving through familiar motions, with unfamiliar anxiety. The shop was busy, a blessing and a curse. Mrs. Henderson's ancient Buick needed new brake pads, and the college kid with the souped-up Honda wanted his exhaust system louder, not quieter. Danny lost himself in the work, hands steady on tools, while his mind raced in circles. "We need to talk." He'd read Mia's message 17 times before noon. "You're distracted today," Miguel said around lunchtime, setting down his wrench and studying Danny across the engine bay of a pickup truck. Miguel had worked at the shop longer than Danny had owned it, had watched him go through the divorce, the custody arrangements, the slow process of rebuilding a life from scratch. "Emma got a flat tire last night," Danny said, not looking up from the alternator he was replacing. "Had to go pick her up." "That's not what's got you wound up." Danny paused, considering how much to share. Miguel was more than an employee, he was family. The kind of friend who showed up with beer after bad days and remembered Emma's birthday without being asked. But this thing with Mia felt too fragile, too uncertain to examine in the harsh light of day. "Mia called," he said finally. Miguel's eyebrows rose. "Mia called you? Directly? First time in 3 years. Shit." Miguel leaned against the truck's fender. "What did she want?" "Don't know yet. We're meeting tonight." "At her place?" Danny shook his head. "Neutral ground. That coffee shop on Main Street." Miguel was quiet for a moment, then spoke carefully. "You want some advice?" "Not really." "Too bad. Don't go into this expecting anything. Whatever she wants, it's probably not what you're hoping for." Danny finally looked up, meeting his friend's eyes. "What makes you think I'm hoping for anything?" Miguel's expression was patient, kind. "Because I've known you for 8 years, and in all that time, you've never gotten over her. Not really." The truth of it sat heavy in the workshop air, mingling with the smell of motor oil and WD-40. Danny returned his attention to the alternator, focusing on the precise movements required to connect the wiring harness. "She's got a whole different life now," he said. "Different world. Maybe. Or maybe she's just as stuck as you are." The afternoon crawled by with deliberate slowness. Danny found excuses to stay busy, organizing the parts room, updating inventory, cleaning tools that were already clean. When 5 o'clock arrived, he sent Miguel home and closed up early. His apartment felt smaller than usual as he showered and changed clothes. He stood in front of his bathroom mirror, studying the face that looked back at him. 41 years old, crow's feet just starting to etch themselves around his eyes, hair still thick, but touched with premature silver at the temples. He looked like what he was. A working man, someone who made his living with his hands. Not the kind of man who belonged in Mia's world anymore. He arrived at Billionaire 5 minutes early, and chose a table in the back corner, away from the windows. The coffee shop buzzed with the usual evening crowd. Students with laptops, young parents juggling toddlers and lattes, a book club discussing their latest selection with animated gestures. Normal people living normal lives. Danny ordered black coffee and checked his phone. No messages. At exactly 7 o'clock, the door chimed, and Mia walked in. She looked exactly the same, and completely different. The same dark hair, though now it was shorter, cut in a sleek bob that framed her face. The same brown eyes that had haunted his dreams for 3 years. But everything else spoke of the life she'd built without him. The tailored coat that probably cost more than he made in a month. The confidence in her stride. The way other customers glanced up when she passed, sensing something different about her. She spotted him immediately and walked over, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. Danny. Mia. She slid into the chair across from him, setting her purse leather, expensive, on the table between them. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Danny studied her face, noting new lines around her eyes, a tightness in her jaw that hadn't been there before. "Thank you for coming," she said finally. "Thank you for calling me about Emma instead of just handling it yourself." Something flickered in her expression. Surprise, maybe, or gratitude. She needed her father. "She has AAA coverage." She needed her father, Mia repeated, more firmly this time. Then, softer. "And I needed to know she was safe." A barista called out someone's order, a complicated drink involving multiple syrups and foam art. The sound seemed to break whatever spell had held them in silence. "How are you?" Mia asked. "Fine. Good. The shop's doing well." He gestured vaguely, encompassing his life in a handful of words. "You?" "Busy." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. The company's expanding into renewable energy. Solar, wind, some experimental battery technology. "It's exciting work." "Sounds like it." Another silence. Danny sipped his coffee and watched Mia fidget with her purse strap, a nervous gesture he remembered from their early dating days, before she'd learned to project unshakable confidence in every situation. "This is harder than I thought it would be," she said suddenly. "What is?" "Being here. Talking to you." She looked directly at him for the first time since sitting down. "I practiced this conversation in my car for 20 minutes before coming in. Rehearsed what I was going to say, how I was going to say it. And now I can't remember any of it." She laughed, short and breathless. "You always had that effect on me. Made me forget my lines." Danny felt something loosen in his chest, a tension he'd been carrying for 3 years without realizing it. "You never needed lines with me." "I did toward the end." The honesty of it hit him like a punch. She was right. Those last months of their marriage had been full of careful conversations, scripted exchanges designed to avoid the landmines they'd scattered throughout their relationship. "Mia," he said quietly, "what's going on? Why did you really call me last night?" She was quiet for so long he wondered if she'd heard him. Then, she reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope, setting it on the table between them with the care of someone handling explosives. "Before I show you this," she said, "I need you to know that I never meant for things to happen the way they did. The divorce, the distance, all of it. I thought I was protecting you." "Protecting me from what?" Instead of answering, she slid the envelope across the table. Danny stared at it without moving. "What is this?" "Just, please, open it." His hands felt clumsy as he lifted the envelope's flap. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, and what looked like a letter written on expensive stationery. He pulled out the first photograph, and his world tilted sideways. It was Emma, but not Emma as he knew her. This Emma wore a designer gown and stood in an ornate ballroom, smiling at the camera with the practiced ease of someone comfortable in formal settings. Beside her stood a man Danny didn't recognize, mid-40s. Distinguished, wearing a tuxedo like he'd been born in it. The second photograph showed Emma cutting a ribbon at what appeared to be some kind of charity event, flanked by people in business suits. The third showed her giving a speech at a podium, poised and confident. Danny looked up at Mia, confusion, and something that might have been fear building in his chest. "I don't understand." "Keep looking." The next photograph stopped his heart. Emma stood on the steps of what looked like a government building, shaking hands with a woman Danny recognized from news programs. Behind them, a banner read, "Youth Climate Initiative, Global Summit." Emma, who worried about chemistry tests, and spent her weekends at soccer practice, and liked terrible reality TV shows. Emma, who was apparently living a life he knew nothing about. "She's been accepted to Stanford," Mia said quietly. "Full scholarship, but not for academics. They want her to head up their new environmental advocacy program. She'd be working with world leaders, tech CEOs, policymakers. She'd have more influence at 18 than most people achieve in a lifetime." Danny set the photographs down with shaking hands. "When did this happen?" "It's been building for 2 years. Ever since she started that environmental club at school. The environmental club that meets once a month, and mostly just picks up trash in the park." Mia's smile was sad. "That was just the beginning, Danny. She's been doing so much more. The climate summit, the policy proposals, the interviews with major media outlets. She's been invited to speak at the UN next month." The words felt unreal, like dialogue from a movie he'd wandered into by mistake. "Why didn't I know about any of this?" "Because she asked me not to tell you." The coffee shop continued buzzing around them, but Danny felt like he was sitting inside a bubble of silence, separated from the normal world by invisible walls. "She was afraid," Mia continued, her voice carefully controlled, "that if you knew how big this was becoming, you'd try to stop her, or that you'd feel left behind." "Left behind." Danny repeated the words, tasting their bitter truth. "She loves you, Danny, more than anything, but she's 17 years old, and she's been offered a chance to change the world, and she's terrified that choosing that future means losing her father." Danny stared at the photographs, scattered across the table. His daughter, confident, poised, powerful, stared back at him from a world he couldn't begin to navigate. "There's more," Mia said softly. She handed him the letter. The letterhead was embossed gold. Expensive. Danny recognized the logo, one of those international foundations that appeared in news stories about humanitarian crises and global policy. The letter was addressed to him. "Mr. Daniel Rivera, we understand that your daughter Emma has not yet discussed with you the opportunities that have arisen from her exceptional work in environmental advocacy. We also understand that this situation presents unique challenges for your family. We would like to invite you to join Emma at our upcoming summit in Geneva, where you can see firsthand the important work she has been doing and the impact she hopes to continue making. All expenses would be covered, and we would ensure that you have the support and information you need to make the best decision for your daughter's future. We believe that Emma's perspective and voice are crucial to addressing the environmental challenges facing our world. We also believe that she should not have to choose between her calling and her family. Please consider our invitation. Emma needs her father's support now more than ever. Sincerely, Dr. Sarah Chen, Director, Global Youth Initiative." Danny read the letter twice, then set it down carefully beside the photographs. "Geneva," he said. "Next week. They want me to come to Geneva. Emma wants you to come to Geneva. She just doesn't know how to ask." Danny looked up at Mia, seeing her clearly for the first time since she'd walked into the coffee shop. The careful makeup couldn't quite hide the exhaustion in her eyes, the worry lines that spoke of sleepless nights and impossible decisions. "How long have you been dealing with this alone?" 2 years. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because Emma asked me not to. Because I thought maybe if I could manage it myself, you wouldn't have to." She gestured helplessly. "You rebuilt your life, Danny. After the divorce, after everything fell apart, you found peace. I didn't want to drag you back into chaos. She's my daughter. I know. Our daughter. I know. Danny gathered the photographs into a neat stack, his hands steadier now. What happens if I say yes? If I go to Geneva? I don't know. Maybe you see what Emma's been doing, and you're proud of her, and you support her choices. Maybe you see how big and overwhelming it all is, and you decide she needs protection from it. Maybe. Mia's voice trailed off. Maybe what? Maybe we figure out how to be a family again. Not the same family we were before, but something new. Something that works. The hope in her voice was carefully contained, but Danny heard it anyway. He thought about Emma's words from the night before. I just want my family back. He thought about dancing in kitchens, and shared laughter, and the way Mia's hand used to find his in movie theaters. He thought about the life he'd built in the past 3 years, small, safe, predictable, and weighted against the uncertain future spreading out before them like an unmapped territory. There's one more thing, Mia said quietly. She reached across the table and touched his hand. The first physical contact they'd had in 3 years. I'm scared, Danny. I'm successful and powerful, and I run a company worth billions of dollars. But when it comes to Emma, when it comes to making sure she doesn't lose herself in all this, I'm scared. Her fingers were warm against his skin, familiar despite the years between them. I can't do this alone anymore, she whispered. I don't want to do this alone anymore. Danny looked down at their joined hands, then up at her face. He saw the girl he'd fallen in love with 18 years ago, the woman he'd married, the mother of his child. He also saw someone new, someone who'd survived heartbreak and built an empire, and learned to carry impossible burdens with grace. Someone who was asking for help. Someone who was asking for him. Outside the coffee shop. Windows. The sun was setting, painting Main Street in shades of gold and amber. Normal people were heading home to normal dinners and normal problems. Danny squeezed Mia's hand and made his choice. The Geneva airport smelled like expensive coffee and quiet desperation. Danny stood at the arrivals gate, watching business people and diplomats flow past him in tailored suits and confident strides. His own reflection in the terminal windows showed a man clearly out of place, khakis from Target, a button-down shirt Emma had picked out for him last Christmas, shoes that were comfortable rather than fashionable. Dad? He turned to find Emma walking toward him, and for a moment, he didn't recognize his own daughter. She wore a navy blazer that made her look older, more serious. Her hair was pulled back in a way that emphasized the strong line of her jaw, Mia's jaw, and she carried herself with a poise that belonged to someone twice her age. But when she smiled, she was still his little girl. You came, she said, and then she was in his arms, the careful composure cracking just enough to let him see the 17-year-old beneath the diplomat's facade. Of course I came. He held her tight, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo, mixed with something new, expensive perfume, probably a gift from whatever organization had been shepherding her through this new world. I'm proud of you, Em. So proud. She pulled back, studying his face with eyes that seemed to see too much. Are you angry that I didn't tell you? We'll talk about that later. Right now, I just want to understand what you've been doing. Emma nodded, some tension leaving her shoulders. The summit starts in 2 hours. There's someone I want you to meet first. She led him through the airport's corridors, past duty-free shops, selling Swiss watches and chocolate, toward a section marked for private terminals. Danny had never seen anything like it. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, attendants in crisp uniforms, who seemed to anticipate their guests' needs before they were spoken. Emma. A woman approached them, tall and elegant, with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. You must be Danny. I'm Dr. Sarah Chen. Danny shook her offered hand, noting the firm grip and direct gaze. Thank you for the invitation. I have to admit, I'm still trying to understand what exactly my daughter has gotten herself into. Dr. Chen smiled. That's exactly why we wanted you here. Come, let me show you. She led them to a quiet lounge area where several other adults sat with teenagers who wore the same careful composure as Emma. Danny recognized the dynamic immediately: parents and children, navigating unfamiliar territory together. The Global Youth Initiative started 5 years ago, Dr. Chen explained, as they settled into comfortable chairs. We identified young people around the world who were already making significant impacts in their communities, and gave them resources, training, and platforms to amplify their voices. And Emma qualified how? Tell him about the water project, Dr. Chen said gently. Emma shifted in her seat, suddenly looking more like the teenager Danny knew. It wasn't that big a deal. Emma, okay, fine. She turned to face her father. Remember when I did that report on water pollution for school? About how the old factory runoff was affecting the creek behind the elementary school? Danny nodded. He remembered helping her with research, driving her to the library for additional sources. Well, after I turned in the report, I kept thinking about it. So I reached out to the State Environmental Agency and asked if there was anything being done about it. And there wasn't. Budget constraints, they said. So I started a petition, got the whole school to sign it, then took it to the town council meeting. Danny felt a flutter of recognition. Emma had asked him to drive her to a council meeting about 6 months ago, but she'd been vague about the details. The council ordered tests, Emma continued. Turns out the contamination was worse than anyone thought. They had to close the creek to fishing and swimming, started a remediation process that's still ongoing. That's when we noticed Emma, Dr. Chen said, a 17-year-old who'd single-handedly forced municipal environmental action. We reached out, offered her resources to expand her impact. Danny looked at his daughter with new eyes. The environmental club at school was just the beginning. Dr. Chen connected me with other young activists around the world. We started collaborating on policy proposals, sharing research, building a network. The pictures I saw, the ribbon cutting, the speeches. I've been testifying before state environmental committees, advising on youth engagement strategies for major environmental organizations. Emma's voice grew stronger as she spoke, passion overriding nervousness. The UN speech next month, I'll be presenting a global youth climate action plan that I've been working on for 8 months. Dr. Chen leaned forward. Danny, your daughter has become one of the most effective young environmental advocates in the world. The plan she's presenting has the potential to influence policy in dozens of countries. Danny sat back in his chair, trying to process the magnitude of what he was hearing. His daughter, the girl who still asked him to kill spiders in her bedroom, was advising governments on environmental policy. Why didn't you tell me? He asked Emma quietly. Emma's careful composure finally cracked completely. Because I was scared you'd think I was getting too big for my britches. Because I was scared you'd try to protect me from it. Because... She paused, tears gathering in her eyes. Because I was scared you'd see how different my world was becoming, and decide you didn't fit in it anymore. The words hit Danny like a physical blow. He reached for Emma's hand, holding it the way he had when she was small, and the world felt too big and scary. Em, listen to me. There is nothing you could do or become that would make me stop being proud to be your father. Nothing that would make me not fit in your world, because wherever you are, that's where I belong. Emma started crying in earnest then, the kind of tears that carried months of worry and fear. Danny pulled her into a hug, not caring that they were in a public space, surrounded by diplomats and world changers. I missed you, she whispered into his shoulder. In all the meetings and speeches and important events, I kept wishing you were there to see it. To tell me I was doing okay. You're doing more than okay. You're amazing. Dr. Chen cleared her throat gently. I don't mean to interrupt, but the summit is beginning soon. Danny, would you like to observe the proceedings? See what Emma's been working toward? Danny looked at his daughter, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time, not just as his little girl, but as the remarkable young woman she'd become. I'd be honored. The summit was held in a conference center that looked like something from a movie about international intrigue. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of Lake Geneva, while inside, delegates from around the world gathered in clusters, speaking in multiple languages about policies and strategies Danny only barely understood. Emma led him to the observers section, where parents and supporters could watch the proceedings. From his seat, Danny could see the main stage where a podium waited beneath bright lights and cameras. "That's where I'll be speaking tomorrow," Emma said softly, presenting the action plan to the full assembly. Danny watched his daughter's profile as she studied the room, noting the way other young delegates approached her with obvious respect and deference. Emma Rivera, his Emma, was clearly a major figure in this world he'd never imagined. The opening ceremony began with remarks from Dr. Chen and other officials. Danny listened to speeches about global cooperation and youth leadership, but his attention kept drifting to Emma. She sat straight in her chair, taking notes, occasionally leaning over to whisper something to the teenager beside her, a girl who looked barely 16 but carried herself with similar gravity. "That's Priya," Emma explained during a break. "She's from Mumbai. She's working on urban air quality initiatives that could affect millions of people." Danny looked around the room with new understanding. These weren't just idealistic kids playing at being important. They were young people, carrying real responsibility, working on problems that would shape the world Emma would inherit. The weight of it settled on his shoulders like a physical thing. During lunch, Emma introduced him to other delegates and their families. He met a father from Kenya whose son was developing water purification systems for rural communities, a mother from Denmark whose daughter was advising the EU on sustainable agriculture, parents who, like him, were learning to navigate a world where their teenagers commanded audiences with world leaders. "It's overwhelming at first," the father from Kenya said quietly, as they stood together watching their children debate carbon offset policies. "My son calls me from Brussels or New York, and I think, this is the boy who used to be afraid of the dark. How do you handle it? I remember that they're still our children, still need us, even if they need us differently now." He smiled. "And I try to be worthy of their faith in me." That evening, Emma and Danny had dinner alone at a quiet restaurant near the lake. The formality of the day had given way to something more familiar, father and daughter, sharing a meal, talking about life. "I have a confession," Emma said over dessert. "What's that?" "I was terrified you wouldn't come, that you'd see how complicated everything had gotten, and decide it was too much." Danny set down his fork, studying his daughter's face. Do you know why your mom and I got divorced?" Emma blinked at the change of subject. "Because you grew apart. Because you wanted different things. That's what we told you. But the truth is more complicated." Danny paused, choosing his words carefully. "We got divorced because we stopped believing we deserved each other. Your mom was building an empire, becoming this powerful, successful person. And I was just me, a guy who fixes cars. Dad, let me finish. I convinced myself that she needed someone who could match her success, her ambition, someone who belonged in boardrooms and charity galas. And she convinced herself that I needed someone simpler, someone who wouldn't complicate my life with demands and expectations." Emma was quiet, processing this. "We were both wrong," Danny continued. "We forgot that love isn't about matching resumes or fitting into each other's worlds perfectly. It's about choosing each other, again and again, regardless of where life takes you." "Is that why you came to Geneva? To choose me again?" "I came to Geneva because you're my daughter and I love you. Because whether you're changing flat tires or changing the world, I want to be there for it." He reached across the table and took her hand. "I came because I realized that I've been making the same mistake with you that I made with your mom." "What do you mean?" "I've been so worried about whether I fit into your world that I forgot the most important thing: you're my daughter. My world changes to include you, not the other way around." Emma squeezed his hand, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I love you, Dad. I love you too, kiddo. More than you know." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the lights reflect off Lake Geneva through the restaurant's windows. "There's something else," Emma said eventually. "About Mom." Danny's heart did something complicated in his chest. "What about her?" "She's here. In Geneva. She flew in this afternoon." "She's here?" "She wanted to surprise you. To see your reaction to the summit. To everything." Emma's voice grew softer. "Dad, I think she's hoping for a second chance." "With you." Danny stared out at the lake, thinking about the woman who had once been his entire world, who had called him at 2:17 a.m. because their daughter needed help. Thinking about the fear in her voice, the vulnerability she'd shown him in the coffee shop. Thinking about the choice he'd already made, and the choices still ahead. Where is she now? Emma smiled through her tears. "Waiting in the hotel lobby. She said she'd give us time to talk first, but..." She shrugged. "She's been waiting for 3 years, Dad. I don't think she can wait much longer." Danny stood up, leaving money on the table for dinner. "Then we shouldn't keep her waiting." As they walked back toward the hotel, Emma slipped her arm through his, and for the first time in 3 years, Danny felt like he was exactly where he belonged. Mia sat in the hotel lobby, like she was waiting for a verdict. Danny saw her before she saw him, curled into a leather armchair near the fireplace, staring into the flames, with the kind of focus that meant her mind was somewhere else entirely. She'd changed from her business attire into jeans and a cream-colored sweater, looking more like the woman he'd married than the CEO he'd divorced. Emma squeezed his arm. "I'm going to go upstairs. Give you two some time." Dad." She turned to face him, and her expression was older than her 17 years. "Whatever happens between you and Mom, I want you to know that having you here, seeing you understand what I'm doing, it means everything to me." She kissed his cheek and headed for the elevators, leaving Danny standing alone in the hotel lobby, watching the woman who had once shared his name and his dreams. Mia looked up as he approached, and the careful composure she'd maintained in the coffee shop slipped just enough to show the anxiety beneath. "How did it go?" she asked softly. "She's remarkable." Danny settled into the chair across from hers, noting the way the firelight played across her features. "What you've helped her become. I had no idea. I didn't help her become anything. Emma did this herself. I just tried to make sure she didn't get lost in it. Is that what happened to us? We got lost." The question hung between them like a bridge neither was sure was safe to cross. Mia's fingers twisted in her lap, a nervous gesture he remembered from their early dating days. "I think we forgot how to find each other," she said finally. "I was so busy building the company, proving I could succeed, that I stopped making time for the things that actually mattered. And I was so intimidated by your success, that I stopped believing I had anything to offer." Mia looked directly at him for the first time since he'd sat down. "You offered me everything, Danny. You offered me love and stability, and a life where I could just be myself, instead of having to perform all the time. And I was too proud, and too scared to admit I needed that." The hotel lobby continued its quiet bustle around them, guests checking in, conversations in multiple languages, the soft ding of elevator arrivals. But Danny felt like they were sitting in a bubble of suspended time, finally having the conversation they should have had 3 years ago. "What are you scared of now?" he asked. "That it's too late. That too much has changed." She paused, then added quietly, "That you've built a life without us, and asking you to give it up would be selfish." Danny thought about his studio apartment, his predictable routines, the careful smallness of the world he'd constructed after their divorce. Safe, contained, manageable, and ultimately empty of everything that had ever mattered to him. "I never built a life without you," he said. "I built a life around the hole you left behind." Mia's breath caught, barely audible over the crackling fire. "Every morning for 3 years, I've made coffee for 2 people out of habit. Every movie I watch, I think about whether you'd like it. Every success Emma has, every milestone, every moment I'm proud of her." He leaned forward, closing some of the distance between them. "The first person I want to tell is you. Danny, I'm not done. His voice was gentle but firm. You said in your message that you can't do this alone anymore. The truth is, I never figured out how to do it alone either. I just got good at pretending. Mia was crying now, silent tears that reflected the firelight. I missed you so much. Every boardroom, every decision, every moment that was supposed to feel like triumph. I kept thinking, Danny would be proud of this. Or Danny would make me laugh about this. Or, Danny would help me figure out what to do next. I'm here now. Are you? Really? She searched his face, desperately. Because Emma's world is about to get even bigger. The UN speech is just the beginning. There will be more summits, more travel, more pressure. And my company is expanding globally, which means more time away, more complications. Mia. Danny reached across the space between their chairs and took her hands, the way he had in the coffee shop. Do you think I care about any of that? You should. Your life is peaceful now. Predictable. What I'm offering is chaos. You're not offering chaos. You're offering partnership. The chance to figure it out together instead of separately. Mia stared down at their joined hands. I don't know how to do this anymore. How to be a wife instead of just a CEO. And I don't know how to be a father to a daughter who's advising world leaders, or a husband to a woman who runs a billion-dollar company. Danny smiled, feeling something light and hopeful unfurling in his chest. But I know how to learn. I know how to adapt. And I know that I'd rather figure it out with you than spend another 3 years figuring out how to live without you. The fire popped, sending sparks up the chimney. Somewhere in the hotel, a piano was playing soft jazz that drifted through the lobby like a soundtrack to their conversation. There's something else, Mia said quietly. Something I haven't told you. Danny's heart did a small flip. What? The company. It's going public next year. The IPO could make us worth. She paused, as if the number was too large to say out loud. A lot of money, Danny. More than either of us ever imagined. Okay? Okay? Mia blinked at him. That's it? Okay? What do you want me to say? That I'm intimidated? That I'm worried about being Mr. Mia Chen? Danny shrugged. Maybe I am. A little. But I've spent 3 years being afraid of your success, and where did it get me? Lonely and miserable, and drinking coffee for 2 every morning. It would change everything. The way people see us. The way we live. Mia. Danny lifted her hands to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to her knuckles. The only thing I care about changing is going to sleep alone every night, and waking up alone every morning. The rest is just details. Mia started crying harder, the kind of tears that carried years of held breath and careful hope. I love you, she whispered. I never stopped loving you. Even when I was angry. Even when I convinced myself we were wrong for each other. Even when I signed those divorce papers. I never stopped. I know, I never stopped either. They sat in silence for a moment, hands clasped, watching the fire burn down to embers. The hotel lobby had grown quieter as the evening wore on, conversations becoming more intimate, the bustle of arrival giving way to the peaceful rhythm of night. So what happens now? Mia asked eventually. Now we go upstairs and tell our daughter that her parents are going to try again. Tomorrow we watch her change the world. And then, Danny paused, thinking about the future that stretched out before them, uncertain, complicated, full of challenges he couldn't even imagine yet. Then we figure out the rest as we go. Just like that? Just like that. Mia smiled through her tears, and for the first time in 3 years, it reached her eyes. You make it sound so simple. The decision is simple. The execution might be more complicated. What about your shop? Your life there? Danny considered this. The auto shop that had been his refuge for 3 years. The small town where he'd learned to live a smaller life. Miguel's been wanting to buy in as a partner for years. Maybe it's time to let him take the lead. And you'd move to? Wherever you and Emma are. Wherever we can build something that works for all 3 of us. Mia leaned forward, closing the distance between their chairs until their knees touched. "Are you sure? Really sure? Because if we do this, if we try again, I can't survive losing you twice." Danny cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing away the tears on her cheeks. "Then, we won't lose each other. We'll hold on tighter this time. Promise?" "I promise." When he kissed her, it felt like coming home after a long journey through foreign territory. Familiar and new at the same time, carrying the weight of their history and the promise of their future. They were still kissing when Emma stepped off the elevator, and when they broke apart, she was standing nearby with a smile that could have powered the entire hotel. "So," she said, settling into a chair next to theirs. "I take it the conversation went well?" "We're going to try again," Mia said, reaching for Emma's hand while keeping hold of Danny's. "All three of us, together." Emma squeezed both their hands. "Good. Because I have a confession to make." "What's that?" Danny asked. "The flat tire wasn't really an accident." Danny and Mia exchanged glances. "What do you mean?" Emma grinned, looking more like a mischievous teenager than a world-changing advocate. "I may have," encouraged, "a small nail to find its way into my tire. I needed an excuse for Mom to call you directly." "Emma!" Mia exclaimed. "You two were being idiots," Emma said matter-of-factly. "Completely in love with each other but too stubborn to admit it. Someone had to do something." Danny started laughing. The kind of laughter that built from relief and joy, and the sheer absurdity of being outmaneuvered by his own daughter. "So this whole thing, the summit, the invitation, 0, 2. Oh, that's all real," Emma said quickly. "I really am speaking at the UN. And I really do need both my parents' support for what's coming next. But the timing." She shrugged. "I may have suggested to Dr. Chen that bringing you here might be exactly what our family needed." Mia shook her head in amazement. "When did you get so wise?" "I had good teachers." Emma looked between her parents, her expression growing serious. "I learned from Mom that you can build something amazing if you're willing to work for it. And I learned from Dad that love means showing up, even when it's hard." Danny felt his throat tighten with emotion. "And what did you learn from watching us fall apart?" "That sometimes the best things are worth fighting for twice." The three of them sat in the dying firelight, hands linked, finally whole again, after 3 years of careful distance and guarded hope. Tomorrow, Emma would take the stage and present her vision for the future to delegates from around the world. Danny would watch his daughter command an international audience with the same pride he'd felt teaching her to ride a bike. Mia would see her company's stock soar and her influence expand. But she'd also see something more valuable, the possibility of sharing her success instead of carrying it alone. And all three of them would begin the complicated, beautiful work of rebuilding their family on a foundation strong enough to weather whatever storms the future might bring. But tonight, they were simply three people who loved each other, sitting by a fire in Geneva, planning a life that would be anything but simple and everything they'd ever wanted. 6 months later, Danny stood in the kitchen of their new house, making coffee for 3. The morning sun streamed through windows that overlooked a garden Mia had insisted on planting vegetables mixed with flowers in a design that was both practical and beautiful. Emma sat at the island, laptop open, video calling with youth advocates from 6 different time zones while eating cereal. "Dad, can you be quiet for like 2 minutes?" she said, not looking up from her screen. "We're trying to coordinate the Berlin conference, and Pablo's connection is terrible." Danny smiled and pantomimed, zipping his lips. Some things never changed. Emma was still his daughter, still got annoyed when he hummed while making breakfast, still left her soccer cleats by the front door, despite having a closet specifically designed for organization. Other things had changed dramatically. The house, for one. Not a mansion. They'd all agreed they wanted something that felt like home, rather than a statement, but spacious enough for Emma's increasingly frequent hosting of international calls, with an office for Mia, and a garage workshop where Danny could still work on cars when he needed to think with his hands. The workshop had been Mia's idea. "You'll go crazy without a project," she'd said when they were looking at houses. "And I like the sound of you working. It makes the house feel lived in." Emma wrapped up her call and closed the laptop with a satisfied sigh. "Berlin's going to be amazing. We've got commitments from 12 countries for the Youth Climate Action Protocol." "That's incredible, Em." Danny set a cup of coffee next to her, the way he'd been doing for 6 months now, present for the small moments and the world-changing ones alike. "Where's Mom?" "Conference call with Tokyo. The renewable energy division is expanding into Asia." Emma nodded absently, already reaching for her phone to check messages. At 17, now 18, as of last month, she managed a schedule that would exhaust most adults. But she also still asked Danny to help with her calculus homework and steal bites of whatever he was cooking for dinner. "I have to leave for school in 10 minutes, she said, scrolling through what looked like policy documents. "But I wanted to tell you guys something first." Danny felt the familiar flutter of parental anxiety. Good news or bad news? With Emma, it could be anything from a college acceptance to an invitation to address the European Parliament. "What's up?" "Stanford called yesterday. They want to move up my start date. Instead of waiting until next fall, they want me to begin the program this summer." Danny's coffee mug paused halfway to his lips. "This summer? That's in 2 months. I know it's fast. But there's this incredible opportunity to help design the curriculum for their new global advocacy program. And if I start early, I could help shape how they teach future activists." Danny set down his mug carefully. 6 months ago, news like this would have sent him into a spiral of worry and inadequacy. His daughter, moving faster than he could follow, into a world where he couldn't protect her. Now, he felt something different. Pride, yes, but also a quiet confidence that they could handle whatever came next. "What do you want to do?" he asked. Emma blinked, clearly having expected more resistance. "You're not going to try to talk me out of it?" "Do you want me to try to talk you out of it?" "No, but..." She paused, studying his face. "Dad, this would mean leaving home earlier than we planned. Missing the rest of senior year. Em, you finished your coursework in December. You've been essentially auditing classes for the experience." Still, Danny moved around the island to sit beside his daughter, the way he had countless times over the past 6 months when she needed to talk through big decisions. "What are you really worried about?" Emma was quiet for a moment, picking at her cereal. "I'm worried that if I keep moving this fast, keep taking these opportunities, I'll lose track of who I am underneath all of it." "And who are you underneath all of it?" "Your daughter. Mom's daughter. A girl who likes terrible reality TV and still checks under her bed for monsters sometimes and cries during dog food commercials." Danny smiled. "Emma, you think those things are mutually exclusive, with being someone who addresses world leaders. Aren't they? Your mother runs a billion-dollar company and still insists on making pancakes from scratch every Sunday. I once changed the transmission on a senator's car while he waited because he needed to get to a vote on environmental legislation." Emma looked up at him, considering this. "The best parts of who you are don't disappear because you're doing important work," Danny continued. "They're what make your work important." Footsteps on the stairs announced Mia's arrival in the kitchen. She appeared still wearing pajamas, but carrying her phone, and looking like someone who just successfully negotiated a multi-million-dollar deal. "Sorry, Tokyo wouldn't let me go. Did I miss anything important?" "Emma got offered early admission to Stanford," Danny said. Mia's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Surprise, pride, worry, calculation. "How early?" "This summer." "That's..." Mia paused, clearly running through logistics in her head. "Actually, that could work out well. The company's opening a West Coast office in San Francisco this fall. I was going to need to spend significant time there anyway." Emma stared at her mother. "You'd move to California?" "We'd move to California," Mia corrected, looking between Emma and Danny. if that's what works best for our family." Danny felt something warm settle in his chest. 6 months ago, Mia would have seen the geographic challenge as an insurmountable complication. Now, she saw it as a problem to be solved together. "What about Dad's shop?" "Miguel's been running it beautifully," Danny said. "And California has plenty of cars that need fixing." Emma looked between her parents, something like wonder in her expression. "You'd really do that? Uproot your lives again just so you could be close to me?" Mia said gently, settling on Emma's other side so their daughter was flanked by both parents. "For 18 years, your life has revolved around ours. Our schedules, our decisions, our limitations. Maybe it's time for that to flip for a while. Besides," Danny added, "adventure runs in the family. Apparently." Emma started crying, the good kind of tears that came with relief and gratitude and the overwhelming knowledge of being loved completely. "I can't believe I got so lucky," she said, voice thick with emotion. "Most kids have to choose between their dreams and their family. Most kids don't have parents who are stubborn enough to make both work," Mia said, wrapping an arm around Emma's shoulders. Danny joined the hug, thinking about the journey that had brought them to this kitchen, this moment, this choice. 3 years of separate lives, of careful distance and guarded hope. One flat tire on a dark highway that had started the long road back to each other. Emma's phone buzzed with a text message. She checked it and groaned. "Sarah wants to know if I'm still going to prom since I'm probably leaving early for college." "Are you?" Mia asked. "I don't know. It feels kind of silly now, doesn't it? Going to prom when I'll be designing international policy curricula this summer." Danny and Mia exchanged glances over Emma's head. Danny said carefully, "when's the last time you did something just because it was fun? Not because it would look good on a resume or help your cause or advance your goals, but just because you wanted to?" Emma thought about this. "I honestly can't remember." "Then you're going to prom," Mia said firmly. "You're going to wear a ridiculous dress, and take pictures, and dance to terrible music, and be a normal teenager for one night. But, no buts. The world's environmental problems will still be there the day after prom. Your advocacy work will still matter. But you're 18 years old, and you deserve to have some normal 18-year-old experiences." Emma looked skeptical. "You really think I should go to prom?" "I think you should do whatever makes you happy," Danny said. "But I also think your mom is right. Balance matters, Em. You can change the world and still have a life." Emma was quiet for a moment, then smiled, the first completely uncomplicated smile Danny had seen from her in months. "Okay, I'll go to prom. But only if you guys help me pick out a dress." "Deal," Mia said immediately. Danny looked at his family, his brilliant, driven, world-changing family, and felt a contentment deeper than anything he'd known before. Not the careful peace of his solitary years, but the rich satisfaction of a life fully lived and shared. Later that morning, after Emma left for school and Mia disappeared into her office for another conference call, Danny stood in his workshop, hands buried in the engine of a classic Mustang that belonged to their neighbor. The work was meditative, familiar, grounding in the way it always had been. But now, it felt different. Not like an escape from life, but like one part of a full life. He could hear Mia's voice drifting down from her office, confident and commanding as she discussed market strategies. Soon, Emma would come home with stories from her classes and updates on her latest projects. Tonight, they'd have dinner together and argue about what to watch on TV, and Mia would fall asleep reading policy briefs while Danny worked on his laptop, and Emma did homework on the living room floor. Normal family chaos, made extraordinary by the simple fact that they'd chosen it, fought for it, built it together from the wreckage of their separate lives. Danny's phone buzzed with a text from Miguel. "How's the new life treating you?" Danny wiped his hands on a rag and typed back. "Like coming home after a long trip. Good. The shop misses you, but I'm glad you're where you belong." Where he belonged. Danny looked around the workshop, through the windows that showed the garden, and the house where his wife worked, and his daughter would soon return from school. He belonged here, in this complicated, beautiful, ever-changing life they were building together. He belonged with them. The Mustang's engine turned over on the first try, purring with the satisfaction of machinery running exactly as it was designed to. Danny smiled and got back to work, the sound of his family's life continuing around him like the best kind of music. 3 months later, Danny stood in the audience at the UN headquarters in New York, watching his daughter address world leaders about the future of environmental policy. Mia sat beside him, their hands clasped, both of them barely breathing, as Emma spoke with the poise and passion that had become her trademark. The Youth Climate Action Protocol represents more than policy recommendations, Emma said, her voice carrying clearly through the assembly hall. It represents a promise that those of us inheriting this world will not accept the limitations of previous generations. Danny thought about promises, the ones they'd made and broken, the ones they'd remade and kept. The promise to show up for each other, to adapt and grow and choose love over fear, again and again. Emma finished her speech to sustained applause, and as she stepped away from the podium, she looked directly at her parents in the audience. Her smile was radiant, confident, full of the knowledge that whatever challenges lay ahead, she wouldn't face them alone. Later, at the reception, diplomats and policymakers sought Emma out for conversations about implementation and next steps. Danny watched his daughter navigate the attention with grace, answering complex questions while somehow still managing to seem like the 18-year-old she was. "She's remarkable," a woman said beside him. Danny turned to find Dr. Chen, elegant as always, in a navy suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent used to be. "She is," Danny agreed. "Though I'm biased. You should be proud. Both of you, Doctor." Chen nodded toward Mia, who was deep in conversation with a group of European environmental ministers. "Emma has advantages many young advocates don't. Parents who understand that supporting her means adapting their own lives, not limiting hers." Danny watched his wife gesture animatedly as she made some point about renewable energy infrastructure, then glance over to catch his eye and smile. In 6 months, they'd face another transition as Emma started college and Mia's company expanded globally. There would be new challenges, new adjustments, new ways of being a family. "It's not always easy," Danny said to Dr. Chen. "Learning how to be supportive without being protective, how to be proud without being overwhelmed. But you're learning, we're learning. Together, Dr. Chen smiled. "That's the secret, isn't it? The willingness to keep learning." The reception wound down as evening settled over New York. Emma, Danny, and Mia walked through the city streets toward their hotel. Emma, between her parents, all three of them, still processing the magnitude of the day. "I can't believe that actually happened," Emma said, looking up at the lights of Manhattan. 2 years ago, I was just a kid with a petition about water pollution. 2 years ago, we were 3 people who loved each other, but didn't know how to be together," Mia said quietly. "And now?" Danny asked. Emma stopped walking and turned to face her parents, her expression serious despite the joy still glowing in her eyes. "Now we're a family that can handle anything." She was right. They'd learned to navigate Emma's growing prominence without losing sight of her needs as their daughter. They'd learned to merge Mia's global business demands with Danny's preference for grounded simplicity. They'd learned that love wasn't about finding someone who fit perfectly into your existing life, but about creating a life spacious enough to hold all of who you were and who you were becoming. Most importantly, they'd learned that second chances were worth fighting for. Messy, complicated, requiring constant adjustment and unwavering commitment. As they reached their hotel, Danny looked up at the city lights and thought about the journey that had brought them here. A flat tire on a dark highway, a phone call at 2:17 a.m., the courage to say yes to uncertainty and change, and the radical hope that love could be stronger than fear. Tomorrow, they'd fly back to California, where Emma would finish preparing for Stanford, and Mia would continue building her renewable energy empire, and Danny would open a new shop near the coast, close enough to both his family and the ocean that had always called to him. But tonight, they were simply three people who had found their way back to each other, standing on a New York sidewalk, planning a future that would be anything but predictable and everything they'd ever wanted. "Come on," Emma said, linking arms with both her parents. "Let's go home." Home, Danny thought, wasn't a place anymore. It was the three of them, choosing each other every day, building something beautiful from the broken pieces of what they'd been before. It was enough. More than enough. It was everything. If you enjoy this story, I want you to click the subscribe button for more stories like this. This will mean a lot for the channel. Thank you.